Lieutenant Jack Sullivan couldn't believe his eyes. The tall, blue-skinned alien diplomat was pressed flat against the wall, all six of its eyes wide with terror. And the cause of this panic? Max, Jack's friendly golden retriever, who sat wagging his tail with his tongue hanging out. "Please remove your attack beast immediately," shrieked Ambassador Zorix of the Silurian Confederation. "We were not informed that humans would bring lethal predators to this meeting." It was the year 2087, and humanity's first official contact with the Galactic Council wasn't going as planned. Jack had brought Max to the meeting as a gesture of goodwill. On Earth, therapy dogs were often used to ease tension in stressful situations. He never expected this reaction. "Max is just a pet," Jack explained calmly. "He's completely harmless. He just wants to say hello." The other aliens in the room, representatives from 7 different species, looked equally horrified. A small green alien with antenna whispered urgently into a translation device. The machine spoke in English. "Your species keeps predators as companions. This was not in our data." Captain Olivia Reyes, the head of Earth's diplomatic team, stepped forward. "Ambassador Zorix, I apologize for the misunderstanding. Lieutenant Sullivan meant no harm. We didn't realize that dogs would cause such distress." Max chose that moment to give a friendly bark. 3 of the alien delegates dropped to the floor in what appeared to be a defensive posture. Another one leaked a foul-smelling liquid from pores on its skin. "Please remove it now," demanded Zorix. Jack quickly attached Max's leash and led him from the room, feeling embarrassed. As the door closed behind him, he heard Captain Rice trying to salvage the meeting. In the hallway outside the conference room, Jack found Dr. Peter Moore, the xenobiologist assigned to the diplomatic mission. Peter was reviewing data on his tablet. "What happened in there?" Peter asked, looking up from his screen. "Max freaked them out," Jack said, scratching the dog behind his ears. "They acted like he was some kind of monster." Peter nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense, actually. I've been studying the biological data they sent over. Most intelligent species in the Galactic Council evolved on worlds without significant predators. Their home planets have simple food chains compared to Earth. So they've never seen anything like dogs before. Or cats, or wolves, or even most birds of prey," Peter explained. "Earth is what they call a death world. A planet with unusually dangerous and diverse wildlife. To them, even our pets are terrifying apex predators." Jack looked down at Max, who was now rolling on his back hoping for a belly rub. "That's hard to believe." The conference room door slid open, and Captain Rice emerged looking tired. The meeting had lasted only 20 minutes. "How bad is it?" Jack asked. "Pretty bad," Rice admitted. "They're implementing an immediate ban on all Earth wildlife in space until proper containment protocols can be established." "A ban because of one dog." "It's not just Max," Rice explained. "When I showed them pictures of life on Earth to try to smooth things over, they were horrified. Bears, eagles, sharks, even squirrels frightened them. One of them fainted when I mentioned that humans keep snakes as pets." "What does this mean for the alliance negotiations?" Peter asked. Rice sighed. "It complicates things. They still want our technology and resources, but they're now insisting on strict quarantine procedures for all Earth vessels, and they've declared all Earth animals as Class 4 biological hazards." Jack knelt beside Max, who licked his face happily, unaware that he'd just been classified as a dangerous weapon by an interstellar government. "The worst part," Rice continued, "is that they're now questioning how peaceful humans can be if we evolved alongside such murderous creatures and actually enjoy their company. They're revising all their assessments of human psychology." "So much for first impressions," Jack muttered, as Max continued wagging his tail. Little did they know, this was just the beginning of humanity's strange reputation among the stars. 5 years had passed since the disastrous first contact meeting. Liz Parker sat in the pilot's seat of her cargo ship, the horizon, carefully checking the navigation system as they approached Vega Colony. The ship was old but reliable, perfect for a pilot who sometimes needed to bend the rules. "We're about 20 minutes from docking," she announced to the empty cockpit. A soft meow answered her. Whiskers, her gray tabby cat, jumped onto the control panel and rubbed against her hand. I know," Liz said, gently moving the cat aside. "You need to stay hidden when we land. The Vega Colony is very strict about the wildlife ban." Smuggling a cat through space wasn't what Liz had planned when she took this job. But when the Earth wildlife ban went into effect, she couldn't bear to leave Whiskers behind. Now they traveled together, delivering supplies to distant colonies while keeping their secret. The Horizon docked smoothly at Vega Colony's main port. Liz secured Whiskers in her private quarters before greeting the dock workers who came to unload her cargo. "Standard delivery from Earth," she told the colony's supply manager, a thin man named Carl. "Medical supplies, tech components, and some luxury items." Carl nodded. "We've been waiting for those medical supplies. Our doctor will be relieved." As they supervised the unloading, Liz chatted with the workers, gathering information as she always did. Running illegal cargo meant knowing which officials could be bribed and which would report her. "I heard there's a new enforcement team checking ships for banned wildlife," she mentioned casually. Carl rolled his eyes. "The Council is paranoid, as if we want Earth predators loose in our colony." What Carl didn't know, what most aliens didn't understand, was that many Earth animals weren't the bloodthirsty killers they imagined. Whiskers spent most of her time sleeping and purring, not hunting. After the cargo was unloaded, Liz returned to her quarters for a quick rest before departure. She opened the door and froze. The small room was empty. "Whiskers," she called softly. No response. The ventilation grate in the corner hung open. Panic rose in her chest. If colony security found Whiskers, they would confiscate her ship and possibly sentence her to prison for smuggling. Worse, they might harm Whiskers out of fear. Liz grabbed her toolkit and slipped out into the colony. She needed help, but who could she trust? As she walked through the main corridor, she overheard a conversation. "Did you see what the security team brought in? Some kind of Earth creature with claws and pointed teeth." Liz's heart sank. Had they already found Whiskers? She approached the speakers, trying to look casual. "What kind of creature?" she asked. "I'm from Earth. Maybe I can identify it." The colony worker, a tall man with a maintenance badge reading Ben Collins, looked at her with interest. They found it in the air recycling system. Small, striped, with whiskers and a long tail. It had to be her cat. "That sounds like a cat," Liz said. "They're harmless, just small companion animals from Earth." Ben's eyes widened. "Harmless. The security chief is treating it like a dangerous predator. They've got it locked in the containment lab." "Would you help me get to that lab?" Liz asked impulsively. "That cat belongs to me, and I need to get her back before they hurt her." Ben hesitated. "That's against colony rules. The wildlife ban." "Please," Liz interrupted. "She's not dangerous. She's my friend." Ben studied her face, then nodded slowly. "I have access to the maintenance tunnels. We can get close to the lab without being seen." As they hurried through the colony, Ben explained that he'd always been curious about Earth wildlife. "The ban seemed extreme," he said. "Are all Earth animals really as deadly as they claim?" Liz shook her head. "Most are harmless. The Galactic Council just doesn't understand them." What neither of them realized was that Whiskers' escape would uncover secrets that the Council had been hiding for years. Secrets that would change humanity's place among the stars forever. Ben led Liz through narrow maintenance tunnels that wound behind the colony's main corridors. The metal walls hummed with the sounds of life support systems. Their footsteps echoed in the confined space as they moved deeper into the restricted areas. "The containment lab should be just ahead," Ben whispered, checking the small digital map on his wrist device. "But there's a problem. We need special access to get inside." Liz frowned. Is there another way in? Before Ben could answer, they heard voices from a side passage. They'd pressed against the wall, hiding in the shadows. Two aliens walked by, a tall Xilarian with blue skin and a squat Vordaxian covered in scales. The Earth predator is absolutely fascinating, the Vordaxian was saying. Such agility, such hunting instincts. Keep your voice down, Krell, the Xilarian warned. If the Council finds out about your collection, we'll all be punished. Collection? Liz mouthed silently to Ben, who shrugged. They waited until the aliens passed, then followed at a safe distance. The pair led them to a hidden door built into what looked like a solid wall. The Vordaxian, Krell, placed his hand on a scanner, and the door slid open. Should we follow them? Ben asked. Liz nodded. It sounds like they know something about Earth animals. Maybe they know where Whiskers is. They slipped through the door before it closed and found themselves in a large, dimly lit room. What they saw made them gasp. The room was filled with habitats, glass enclosures containing various Earth animals. A goldfish swam in a small tank. A hamster ran on a wheel. In a larger enclosure, a rabbit munched on vegetables. All ordinary Earth pets, kept like precious treasures. Krell and the Xilarian were standing in front of an empty habitat, arguing. Your Earth cat escaped, the Xilarian said angrily. Do you know how dangerous that is? If colony security finds it. They already found it, Liz said, stepping forward. Both aliens whirled around, stunned by the humans' sudden appearance. And I want my cat back. Krell recovered quickly from his surprise. His reptilian face broke into what might have been a smile. A human. How wonderful. And you claim the Felinus domesticus belongs to you. Her name is Whiskers, Liz said firmly. She's my pet, and she's harmless. Krell laughed, a strange hissing sound. Harmless. Your Earth cat has claws that can shred flesh, teeth designed for ripping meat, and eyes that can see in darkness. By Galactic Council standards, it is a perfectly evolved killing machine. You don't seem afraid, Ben noted. I am not like most, Krell said proudly. I am a collector of Earth specimens. I find your planet's wildlife fascinating, not frightening. He gestured to the habitats. These are just a small part of my collection. You're breaking the law, Liz said. As are you, bringing a banned Earth predator into space, Krell countered. It seems we are both criminals. The Xilarian interrupted nervously. Security took the cat to the main lab for study. They're sending for a council enforcement team. We need to be careful. Liz stepped closer to Krell. You say you admire Earth animals. Help us get Whiskers back, and I might be able to help you with your collection. Krell's eyes gleamed with interest. What could you offer? I make regular trips to Earth. I could bring you specimens, harmless ones, ethically obtained. Krell considered this, then nodded. I will help you. Not just for your offer, but because there are things you should know. His voice dropped lower. The Council's ban on Earth wildlife isn't just about fear. They're studying your animals in secret, learning from them. Learning what? Ben asked. How to become better predators themselves, Krell said grimly. The Council fears humanity because you evolved alongside creatures they consider monsters, and survived. Some Council species want to understand that power. Liz and Ben exchanged worried glances. Rescuing Whiskers had suddenly become much more important than avoiding a fine or saving a pet. Something bigger was happening, something that affected all of Earth. Take us to the main lab, Liz said. We need to get my cat and find out what the Council is really up to. Krell led Liz and Ben through a maze of hidden passages beneath the colony. These tunnels weren't on any official maps. They were narrow and barely lit, clearly built without the colony administration's knowledge. The underground network extends throughout most Council space, Krell explained as they walked. Many of us believe the ban on Earth wildlife is wrong. We trade information, specimens, and help each other avoid detection. How many of you are there? Ben asked, ducking under a low pipe. Thousands, Krell said proudly. Not all aliens fear Earth creatures. Many of us are fascinated by them. They reached a small door at the end of a passage. Krell pressed his scaled hand against it, and it slid open to reveal what looked like a storage closet. The far wall was actually the back of a large cabinet. This will put us inside the main laboratory, Krell whispered. The Council enforcement team has not yet arrived, but colony security is guarding your cat. We must be quiet. Liz nodded. Lead the way. Krell pushed the cabinet forward slightly, creating a gap they could slip through. They emerged in a brightly lit laboratory filled with strange equipment. In the center of the room was a clear containment unit, and inside it, looking annoyed but unharmed, was Whiskers. 2 security guards stood nearby, watching the cat warily. A woman in a white lab coat was examining data on a screen. That's Dr. Maria Alvarez, Krell whispered. She is from Earth, but she works for the Council now. Is she dangerous? Liz asked. I do not know. She studies Earth animals for the Council's research program. They watched as Dr. Alvarez approached the containment unit. She spoke softly to Whiskers, who meowed in response. The security guards stepped back nervously. It's just a house cat, they heard Dr. Alvarez say with frustration. It's no more dangerous than... She stopped, apparently thinking better of what she was about to say. The Council team can take it when they arrive. I have work to do. As Dr. Alvarez turned back to her computer, she glanced in their direction. For a moment, Liz thought they'd been spotted, but the scientist gave no sign of alarm. Instead, she casually reached over and pressed a button on her console. An alarm began to blare. Security breach in Level 3, announced an automated voice. All personnel evacuate to safety stations. The guards looked confused. What's happening? One asked. The system detected a malfunction in the air recycling, Dr. Alvarez said calmly. Standard protocol is to evacuate this section. You should go. I'll secure the specimen. The guards hesitated, then hurried out a side door. As soon as they were gone, Dr. Alvarez looked directly at the cabinet where Liz, Ben, and Krell were hiding. You can come out now, she said. I know you're there. If you want the cat, you'd better hurry. Surprised, they emerged from their hiding place. How did you know? Ben asked. Krell isn't as subtle as he thinks, Dr. Alvarez said with a small smile. I've known about his collection for months. Liz moved quickly to the containment unit. Why are you helping us? Because I don't agree with what the Council is doing, Dr. Alvarez said, typing a code that opened the unit. Whiskers jumped into Liz's arms, purring loudly. They're not just afraid of Earth animals. They're studying them, trying to understand why Earth produced such effective predators when other worlds didn't. Why does that matter? Ben asked. Because they're afraid of humans too, Dr. Alvarez explained urgently. They think our evolution alongside predators makes us potentially dangerous. Some Council members want to use what they learned from our animals to develop new weapons and defenses against us. A new alarm sounded, this one more urgent. That's the real alarm, Dr. Alvarez said. The Council enforcement team has arrived early. You need to leave now, but you should take this. She handed Liz a small data device. It contains evidence of what they're really doing. There's a research station in the Epsilon Eridani system where they're conducting the main experiments. Come with us, Liz offered. Dr. Alvarez shook her head. I can do more good here, but you need to expose this. The entire ban is based on a lie. 3 days later, Liz's ship approached the Epsilon Eridani research station. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary Council science facility, a large ring-shaped structure orbiting the system's 4th planet. But according to Dr. Alvarez's data, its true purpose was far from ordinary. How do we get inside? Ben asked, looking at the station through the view screen. They're not going to just invite us in. Liz smiled. Actually, they are. She pointed to a message on her communication panel. Dr. Alvarez sent our ship ID as an expected supply delivery. We have clearance to dock. Krell, who had insisted on joining them, looked nervous. His scales had taken on a paler color. If they discover who we really are, they will imprison us all. Or worse. That's why we stick to the plan, Liz said firmly. She checked that Whiskers was secure in her hidden compartment. We dock, we find evidence of what they're doing, and we leave. Simple. The docking went smoothly. They were met by a bored-looking security officer who barely glanced at their fake ID cards before wigging them through. Supply storage is on level 3, the officer said. Don't wander. Once they were alone in a corridor, Krell pulled out a small device and studied it. According to Dr. Alvarez's map, the main research labs are on level 5. We need to get there without being seen. They found a service lift and rode it to level 5. The doors opened onto a long hallway lined with laboratory doors. Each door had a small window, allowing them to peek inside. The first lab contained nothing unusual, just standard scientific equipment. The second was the same, but the third lab made them stop in shock. Inside was a large habitat designed to look like an earth forest, and moving through the trees was a pack of wolves. They're studying pack hunting behavior, Ben whispered, watching the wolves move together with perfect coordination. The next lab was even more surprising. It contained several dogs of different breeds, retrievers, shepherds, collies, all working through what looked like training exercises with robotic handlers. They're testing problem-solving skills, Liz realized, seeing how dogs can be trained to perform complex tasks. Krell pointed further down the hall. The main research center should be just ahead. As they approached the central lab, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridor. Security breach on level 5, announced a computerized voice. All personnel initiate lockdown procedures. Did they spot us? Ben asked, looking around frantically. Before anyone could answer, the doors to several labs slid open. Station staff rushed out, running toward emergency exits. None of them paid any attention to Liz, Ben, and Krell. Something else triggered the alarm, Liz said. Look. Through the window of the central lab, they could see chaos unfolding. Several small animals were loose inside. What looked like a pair of cats, some kind of small dog, and a creature with a striped tail and clever paws. A raccoon, Ben exclaimed. How did they get loose? A harried-looking scientist ran past them, shouting into a communication device. The power fluctuation reset all the habitat locks. The Earth specimens are escaping. Krell's eyes widened. This is our chance. While they're distracted with the escaped animals, we can access the main computer. They slipped into the central lab, carefully avoiding the staff who were trying to recapture the animals. The raccoon was causing the most trouble, climbing on equipment and knocking things over as it explored. It's destroying the lab, one scientist cried, watching in horror as the raccoon figured out how to open drawers and cabinets. It's not destroying anything, Ben said quietly to Liz. It's just curious. Raccoons are naturally inquisitive. Liz reached the main computer terminal and plugged in Dr. Alvarez's device. Keep watch while I download the research data. On the screen, files began to appear, research reports, experiment logs, and council communications. As Liz skimmed through them, her expression grew more troubled. They're not just studying Earth animals because they're afraid of them, she said. They're trying to understand why Earth developed such complex predator-prey relationships when other worlds didn't. They think it might be the key to why humans advanced so quickly. Ben looked over her shoulder at the screen. According to this, most council species evolved on worlds with simple ecosystems and few predators. They think our constant struggle with predators forced humans to become more intelligent, more innovative. And that scares them, Liz finished. They're afraid of what we might become. 1 month later, Liz, Ben, and Krell stood before the Galactic Council on their central world, Nexus Prime. The great chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of alien species. They all watched with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion as the three unlikely allies prepared to present their evidence. Liz felt small in the massive hall, but she stood tall. Beside her, Ben looked nervous but determined. Krell's scales had darkened with excitement. This was the biggest audience he had ever addressed. At the head of the chamber sat the council leaders, 7 aliens from the most powerful species in the galaxy. The head counselor, a tall Xilarian named Zorex, spoke first. This emergency session has been called to address serious accusations against council research activities, Zorex announced. The humans Elizabeth Parker and Benjamin Collins, along with Krell of Vordax, claim that our ban on Earth wildlife is based on deception. They will now present their evidence. Liz stepped forward. On the large screen behind her appeared images from the research station, wolves being studied, dogs solving puzzles, and even footage of the raccoon that had caused so much chaos during their escape. Council members, Liz began, 5 years ago, you banned all Earth animals from space, claiming they were dangerous predators that threatened galactic safety. But our evidence shows the real reason for the ban was fear, not of our animals, but of humans. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some aliens looked offended, others guilty. Earth evolved differently from your worlds, Ben explained, taking his turn. Our planet developed complex predator-prey relationships that don't exist elsewhere. This shaped not just our animals, but humans too. Krell stepped forward. The Council's secret research program wasn't about protecting other species from Earth wildlife. It was about studying Earth predators to understand what makes humans different and potentially dangerous. Zorex rose from his seat, his blue skin flushed darker with anger. These are wild accusations. Yes, we study Earth creatures, but only to protect ourselves. Have you seen what your pets can do? We have, Liz answered calmly. She played a video from the research station showing the escaped animals. The council members watched in horror as cats jumped with incredible agility, dogs worked together to open doors, and the raccoon solved a complex locking mechanism to reach food. Look at those killing machines, shouted one council member. Actually, Ben said, none of those animals hurt anyone during their escape. The cats were mainly looking for warm places to sleep. The dogs were seeking human attention, and the raccoon. As if on cue, a small furry head poked out from Ben's bag. The raccoon they had accidentally brought from the research station peered around the chamber with bright, curious eyes. The reaction was immediate. Council members leaped from their seats. Some hid under tables. Others ran for the exits. The chamber erupted in chaos. Please remain calm, Liz shouted over the noise. This is exactly what we're talking about. This raccoon isn't dangerous. He's just curious. The raccoon, which they had named Bandit, climbed onto Ben's shoulder and tilted his head at the panicking aliens. He chittered softly, as if confused by their reaction. Slowly, the panic subsided as council members realized the raccoon wasn't attacking anyone. They returned to their seats, looking embarrassed. Dr. Maria Alvarez, who had joined them from the colony, stepped forward. I worked in your research program for years, she told the council. You claimed to fear Earth animals, but what you really feared was the human capacity for adaptation. We evolved alongside predators, learning to understand them, domesticate them, and even love them. That's not something to fear. It's something to learn from. Zorex looked around at his fellow council members, then back at the raccoon, which was now innocently grooming itself on Ben's shoulder. Perhaps, he admitted reluctantly, we have allowed our fears to cloud our judgment. But you cannot deny that Earth wildlife is unlike anything else in known space. That's true, Liz agreed, but different doesn't mean dangerous. And banning something just because you don't understand it is never the right answer. The council chamber grew quiet as the aliens considered her words. For the first time, many of them were seeing Earth animals not as monsters, but as the complex, intelligent creatures they truly were. The Galactic Council debated for 3 days. Liz, Ben, and Krell waited anxiously as the fate of Earth's relationship with alien species hung in the balance. Dr. Alvarez joined their discussions, providing scientific insight that helped strengthen their case. On the morning of the 4th day, they were called back to the council chamber. The mood was solemn, but no longer hostile. Zorex stood to deliver the verdict. After careful consideration of the evidence presented, the council acknowledges that our approach to Earth wildlife has been flawed, Zorex announced. His admission clearly wasn't easy. Our fear led us to extreme measures that were not fully justified by facts. Murmurs spread through the chamber, but Zorex raised a hand for silence. Therefore, we are amending the Earth wildlife ban. Earth animals will no longer be completely prohibited in council space, but will instead be subject to a registration and containment protocol appropriate to each species. Liz smiled at Ben. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was progress. Furthermore, Zorex continued, the Council's secret research program studying Earth wildlife will be disbanded. Instead, we propose a new initiative, a cultural exchange program where qualified scientists from Council worlds can visit Earth to study its unique ecosystem in a transparent and ethical manner. Krell's scales flushed with excitement. This is more than I ever hoped for, he whispered. Finally, Zorex said, looking directly at Liz and Ben, we request that humans help us better understand the animals with whom they share their world. Your ability to coexist with such diverse life forms is remarkable. Ben stepped forward with Bandit still perched on his shoulder. We would be happy to help. In fact, we have a proposal of our own. In the weeks that followed, Liz and Ben established the first interstellar pet training and certification program. With support from both Earth and the Council, they created guidelines for safely bringing certain Earth animals into space. 6 months later, Liz stood in a specially designed room on Nexus Prime. Around her, a small group of alien children and their parents watched nervously as she demonstrated basic dog handling techniques with a gentle golden retriever named Max, the same breed that had caused such panic at first contact 5 years earlier. Remember, she told the alien children, move slowly and speak softly. Let Max come to you. He's friendly, but he can sense if you're afraid. One by one, the alien children cautiously extended their hands, or tentacles, or sensory appendages, toward Max. The dog sniffed each one, then wagged his tail happily. When a small Solarian child finally gathered the courage to pet Max's head, the room broke into applause. Meanwhile, in another part of the station, Ben was teaching a class on understanding Earth wildlife behavior. His star pupil was still Bandit the raccoon, who had become something of a celebrity throughout Council space. Aliens were fascinated by his problem-solving abilities and dexterous paws. The key to understanding Earth animals, Ben explained to his class, is recognizing that their behaviors evolve for specific reasons. What might seem frightening to you is often just curiosity, playfulness, or adaptation. On Earth, the impact was equally significant. The first alien scientists had arrived to study Earth's ecosystem, and they were amazed by what they found. The complex web of predators and prey, the diversity of species, the constant adaptations, all of it was unlike anything on their homeworlds. Dr. Alvarez, now heading the exchange program, reported that many alien scientists had overcome their initial fear and developed genuine appreciation for Earth wildlife. In her quarters on Nexus Prime, Liz relaxed with Whiskers purring on her lap. On her view screen was a message from Captain Rice, the diplomat who had been present at the disastrous first contact meeting. Your work is changing perceptions throughout the galaxy, the message read. What began as fear is becoming respect. Earth's unique evolution is no longer seen as a threat, but as a valuable perspective in our galactic community. Liz smiled as Whiskers stretched and yawned, showing her tiny fangs, once considered terrifying weapons, now understood as just one adaptation among many in the remarkable story of Earth's wildlife. Outside her window, The stars shone brightly, no longer representing boundaries and restrictions, but new worlds to explore together.